there. The holiday season can be a really hard time of year for people. I know with my clients that it's been a huge topic of our discussion recently because for many of them it has been a sad and a lonely time. And why is this? Well, maybe your holiday used to be, from what you can remember, a happy time, maybe when you were a child. And maybe now, years later, life looks a little bit different and it doesn't feel quite the same. Maybe it was happy when your kids were little and now they're grown and they have families of their own and it's hard to find time together. Maybe this expectation of joy and abundance is not at all what it's ever been like for your holiday season. And instead, the holidays come with the obligation to spend time with people rather than desire, because maybe these are family members that you intentionally avoid, but you spend time with once a year or twice a year. Maybe these are people whose values you disagree with, whose politics, behaviors, and that can be really stressful. Maybe you're spending time with people in your family that you've had some conflict with and it's never been resolved, and so you're dealing with sort of an elephant in the room situation. Maybe there's family secrets and you all come together and then all of a sudden it's sort of like you kind of feel it, but nothing's really discussed. There's all sorts of dynamics that can occur. And that's not even to mention that there's additional stressors of just buying gifts and hosting and various events and demands that can sort of add to the stress of the season. So I want to talk about ways to help you get ahead of the holiday blues and minimize your stress so that hopefully your holidays can be, perhaps a little more joyful. Okay, so the first tip that I think is really, really important is to acknowledge your feelings. So just because it's the holiday season doesn't mean you can force happiness. So maybe you didn't have the option, or it wasn't possible for you to fly across the country and spend the holidays with your family, and that brings you sadness. I want you to feel okay to acknowledge that. So once again, the holidays do not have to be this happy time. Holidays are whatever they are. So that's really important. So the next tip number 2, is to set aside differences and practice compassion. So the holidays are not a good time to try to change people in your family with whom you don't really like or don't really agree with and wish were different. And in fact, it may never be a good time to do that. But in particular, it's not a good time during the holidays. So I encourage you, in order to enjoy your time more, I really encourage you to try to accept your family and friends as they are. Even if they don't live up to your expectations or if you don't agree with their choices or behaviors. Have compassion for them. The truth is that they might also have difficulty during this holiday season and they might not be at their best. So how to sort of find common ground and appreciate whatever it is, even if it's just we've come together and we share common blood and we've had some good times in the past. Okay? So the next tip is particularly if you are someone who is feeling really lonely or isolated this holiday season, I want you to reach out for support. It's really, really important, even if sometimes the more isolated we are, the less inclined we are to do this. So it's really important to seek out community, religious events, social events, whatever it is. And if you're having a hard time coming up with what that might be, if you feel like, man, I don't really have many options, or I don't really have many people in my life that I feel like comfortable reaching out to, then look for ways that you can volunteer. Volunteering is a great way to give back, get outside of yourself, and be surrounded with some community. Okay? So the next tip is to create realistic expectations. So your holiday will not be perfect, and it might not be like last year. It might not be the way it used to be. Change is the only thing that we know to be constant. And so as time goes on, rituals change, they're lost. So it's really important to just be realistic with your expectations. What are the rituals and what are the things that you can hold on to that still make sense? And what are the new rituals that you're going to create? How can you be flexible in saying, well, this no longer works anymore based on my family dynamic or based on where I live, so I'd like to introduce this new ritual, because rituals are ways that we actually feel safe and connected. So the next tip is a really important one, which is to practice boundaries, and in particular, say no. Saying yes when you feel obligation. You might say yes because you have this fear of missing out, of, gosh, I would hate to miss this event, even though it's going to be a real tight crunch, and man, I could really use the night off, but what if I miss seeing those people, right? These are reasons we say yes. We say yes sometimes because we feel like we'll hurt a person's feelings, and it really matters that we meet this person's approval. So there's a lot of reasons that we say yes. We are all guilty of this. But what ends up happening is when we say yes, when we really should say no, we end up feeling resentful. We may end up feeling overwhelmed. And we may also end up bailing on our commitments. So last minute, we decide, shoot, I really just can't do this, and have to cancel last minute, which inevitably probably makes us feeling worse about ourselves, actually, because then we feel guilty that we were so last minute. So I'm actually in below my video, you'll see my tips here in just bullet form. And under tips to set boundaries and say no, I have linked a podcast that goes into a wonderful description of how to gracefully say no. And I really recommend, if you have an hour, that you take some time to listen to it, because I'll give you much better information than I am doing in this video here. So the last two are really, really simple. You've heard these before. I'm probably preaching to the choir, but they're really important, so I want to just reiterate, which is the practice of gratitude. It's a way to care for yourself. It's a way to increase your mood. It's a way to sort of manage yourself in a better way. And my tip to practice gratitude is, I think, pretty cool, because it's also a tip to help you with sleeping if you're particularly feeling stressed and sleep is hard for you right now, which is to use the alphabet to practice gratitude before you go to bed. So an example would be, you go to bed, you lay in bed, you close your eyes, and the first letter is A. So you could say, I am, quietly in your head, I am grateful for the clean air quality right now. Because if you're in California, you know that we've just had some really, really bad fires, and the air quality has been poor in the Bay Area. And I'm just so grateful to be able to go outside and exercise and breathe the clean air. And then you would go on to B, and you might say, I am appreciative of my bed. It's so comfortable, and it allows me, I'm privileged to have this comfortable bed and to get a good night's sleep. Okay? So then you go on and on and on, and hopefully eventually you fall asleep, maybe with even a few letters. And then the final tip is to maintain your exercise and your healthy eating habits. It is so important, particularly during this time when you feel like you should, your schedule is off and whatever else. But it's extra important that you are taking care of yourself during this time. So that is all from me. My name is Nicole Byrne. I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist, and I offer online therapy. Thank you.